When a man is first confronted with absence, it arrives like an unexpected silence that unsettles the very rhythm of his inner world. He may not immediately grasp the weight of what has shifted, but he feels it in the small spaces of daily life where her presence once lived. What he once considered ordinary, her voice breaking the monotony of a day, the subtle warmth of her nearness, the comfort of her attention, suddenly vanishes. It is not the absence of grand gestures that disturbs him most, but the loss of those familiar, almost invisible threads that wove themselves quietly into the fabric of his being. The shock of silence makes him realize that what he thought he could take for granted was, in fact, the very thing holding together the background of his existence. At first, he may resist admitting this to himself. He convinces his mind that nothing has changed, that life can continue as usual. Yet his body betrays him in the empty pauses, in the quiet hours, in the moments when instinctively he reaches for someone who is no longer there. The absence exposes him, stripping away the illusions he held about control, independence, and self-sufficiency. He is not as unaffected as he imagined. Instead, he finds himself listening to the silence, and within it, he hears his own yearning. This initial shock is not merely about losing a person, but about losing the mirror she provided. Her presence reflected back to him parts of himself he could not see alone. Without her gaze, he begins to question who he is, because so much of his identity had unconsciously formed around how he was received, acknowledged, and valued by her. In her silence, he encounters his own emptiness, and it unsettles him more than he would ever admit out loud. Absence, in its first impact, has a way of amplifying contrast. Everything that once seemed mundane suddenly becomes vivid in its missing. The sound of her laughter is remembered more sharply when it is not heard. The smallest gestures, a glance, a word, a touch, become immense when they are no longer present. This intensification creates an inner tension. The man realizes that what he overlooked was, in fact, the essence of connection. And this recognition does not come gently. It often arrives like a wound, unexpected and sharp, cutting into the illusion of detachment. What is most striking in this stage is how quickly absence makes him aware of dependency, though he may fight against naming it as such. He may tell himself that he is fine, that he is strong, that no absence can shake him. Yet beneath the surface, something more profound is stirring. It is not weakness, but rather the raw human truth that we are never truly whole without the presence of another who awakens us to dimensions of ourselves. He may not know how to articulate it, but he feels it, the strange sensation of being unmoored, as though a piece of the world has been pulled away, leaving him suspended in a space that no distraction can entirely fill. It is in this shock of silence that the groundwork is laid for what comes after. For absence is not passive, it does not merely remove, it creates. It creates longing, it creates reflection, it creates an atmosphere where emotions intensify rather than fade. And though the man might imagine at first that he can endure the distance with indifference, he discovers that the silence itself has a voice, whispering louder the longer it lingers. The absence, in its very stillness, presses against him, shaping his thoughts and reminding him that he is far more vulnerable to her loss than he ever dared to acknowledge. The first encounter with absence, then, is a confrontation with truth. It teaches him in the most sudden and piercing way that the ordinary is extraordinary, that the simple presence of another is never truly simple, and that silence can be louder than words. It unsettles, it disturbs, but above all, it awakens. For it is only when she is gone that he begins to understand what she meant. And in that moment, absence has already won its first victory. It has made him see what presence truly was. When absence lingers beyond the initial shock, something subtle but powerful begins to unfold within a man. Memory, once buried beneath the noise of daily living, starts to rise to the surface with startling clarity. He finds himself replaying fragments of shared moments, often without intending to, A word she once spoke comes back to him in the middle of the night, or the way she smiled resurfaces in his mind while he goes about his ordinary tasks. What seems small in the moment takes on a new dimension in recollection, because memory has a way of polishing what reality left unremarkable. It casts a soft glow over the past, and what was once casual now appears precious. In this stirring of memory, he does not only recall events, but he relives them. The scent of a place they once visited, the tone of her laughter, the rhythm of her presence, all come rushing back. Uninvited yet insistent, the absence has opened a space where memory floods in, and it is in this flood that he begins to feel the depth of what he is missing. The mind becomes a theater where scenes play themselves again and again, and the emotions tied to those scenes become stronger in their repetition. He begins to sense that memory itself has become a companion, though one that brings both comfort and ache. What is most striking in this stage is how the past takes on a sharper reality than the present. The man may be sitting in silence, going through the motions of his day, yet within him another world is alive, a world of recollection where every detail of her lingers. He cannot control when these memories appear. They rise at unexpected moments, catching him off guard, reminding him of her in ways he cannot dismiss. And this unpredictability creates a certain restlessness within him, as though the past has more hold on him now than the present moment. Through memory, absence deepens its influence. It is not merely that he recalls her, it is that he re-experiences her. He feels again the comfort of her nearness, the reassurance of her words, the spark of her presence. These memories, in their repetition, become more than simple recollections. They transform into longings. What was once lived now becomes desired, and what was once present becomes idealized. He is no longer simply remembering her, he is yearning for her through the lens of memory itself. This process also awakens within him an uncomfortable recognition that he took for granted what he now treasures in memory. When she was near, he did not notice the beauty of these details with such intensity. Only in her absence does he realize how much significance lay hidden in what seemed ordinary. This realization carries with it a quiet sorrow, for memory becomes not only a reminder of her, but a mirror reflecting his own neglect. He cannot escape the sense that he overlooked something invaluable while he had it, and now it returns to him only as a recollection. The stirring of memory also blurs the boundaries of time. The past does not remain neatly behind him. It intrudes into his present, shaping his emotions, coloring his thoughts, and altering his perception of the future. He may find himself hoping for a chance to create such moments again, or fearing that they will never return. Either way, memory ensures that absence does not fade into emptiness, but grows into something alive and insistent, pressing upon him with each recollection. In this way, memory is not passive. It does not simply preserve what has been lost, it amplifies it, it deepens it, it transforms it. Through memory, absence continues to act upon him, weaving its influence into the fabric of his inner life. And as he surrenders to these recollections, he discovers that he is no longer just missing her presence, he is haunted by it, compelled by it, and shaped by it. It is here that absence reveals its quiet power. It teaches a man that what was once dismissed as fleeting is, in truth, eternal within him. For memory does not let go, and through it, absence becomes a constant reminder that she was never ordinary, and neither was the time they shared. Desire grows most fiercely in the spaces where something is withheld. When a man is faced with absence, he discovers that longing does not diminish with distance. It intensifies. What he once thought of as ordinary suddenly becomes the object of his deepest craving. The void she leaves behind does not simply remain empty, it transforms into a fertile ground where desire takes root and expands, reaching further than it ever did when she was near. It is the paradox of human emotion that we often want most what we cannot immediately have, and absence sharpens this truth with a precision that cannot be ignored. As time passes, he begins to notice that the craving is not only for her presence, but for the feeling of fullness that her presence once gave him. He yearns for the comfort of her nearness, the spark of energy that came when she entered the room, the subtle reassurance that comes from being truly seen. These are not easily replicated by distractions or substitutes. The absence highlights them almost cruelly because no matter where he turns, he cannot escape the reminder that nothing else fills the void in quite the same way. Desire grows not only because she is gone, but because the uniqueness of what she gave him becomes clearer with every passing day. The man may attempt to silence this yearning, convincing himself that he can move forward without her. He tells himself he is strong, independent, in control of his emotions. Yet desire has a way of working beneath the surface, steadily, insistently, until it overpowers the barriers he constructs. He may find himself drawn to habits that once included her, retracing steps or revisiting places where her presence lingers in memory. He may resist it, but desire pulls him back toward the traces of what he longs for. In this way, absence becomes not only a separation but also a magnetic force, drawing him closer in spirit even as physical distance remains. What is striking about desire in the face of absence is that it transforms perception. When she was near, he may have overlooked certain qualities, dismissing them as small or unremarkable. But when she is gone, those very qualities become monumental in his mind. The tone of her voice, the way she carried herself, even the most ordinary gestures, all of these are magnified by desire. They are no longer just aspects of her, they become symbols of what he cannot replace. Desire distorts in its intensity, not by creating something false, but by deepening the significance of what was always there yet never fully appreciated. This longing also begins to affect how he views himself. In her absence, he becomes acutely aware of the emptiness within him that her presence once softened. He recognizes that desire is not only directed outward, but also reveals his own inner need. It exposes the vulnerability he tries to conceal, the dependency he denies, the hunger for connection that cannot be satisfied by pride or detachment. Desire lays bare the truth that he is incomplete without that spark, and this realization unsettles him as much as it draws him deeper into his yearning. Over time, desire becomes less about physical closeness and more about emotional presence. He longs for the feeling of being understood, the quiet assurance that she provided simply by existing in his world. It is not only her that he craves, but also the version of himself that emerged in her company, the man who felt alive, valued, and awakened. This is the secret of desire in absence. It is not only about wanting the other, but also about wanting the self that only appears in the presence of the other. And so, what began as a simple longing evolves into something larger, something that consumes thought and reshapes behavior. Desire becomes a force that whispers in the silence, reminding him of what he has lost, urging him to seek it again, no matter the cost. It is here that absence reveals its deepest power, for it does not let him remain neutral. It stirs him, unsettles him, and compels him to move toward the very thing he thought he could do without. In the end, absence transforms into a mirror of desire, showing him that what he once treated lightly has become the very thing he cannot stop craving. Absence has a way of waging war not only with the heart but also with the ego. For a man, this battle can be one of the most difficult to endure because it strikes at the core of the image he holds of himself. He wants to believe he is in control, composed, untouched by the shifting tides of emotion. Yet when she withdraws, when her presence is no longer there to soften his world, he feels the weight of her absence pressing in. Inside, he is shaken, but outwardly he struggles to maintain the armor of pride. This is the struggle of ego in the face of longing to appear unmoved, while secretly being undone. At first he resists acknowledging it. He tells himself he is fine, that her absence is insignificant, that his life remains whole without her. But beneath this surface denial another current flows, an aching emptiness, a subtle desperation he cannot quite silence. He may put on displays of confidence, act as if he is unbothered, even distract himself with noise and activity, but the silence always returns. It is in that silence where the ego's facade begins to crack. For no matter how firmly he clings to the image of strength, he cannot escape the inner truth that he misses her, that he feels her absence in ways too deep to ignore. The ego resists vulnerability because to admit longing is to admit need, and need can feel like weakness to a man who has built his identity on independence and control. So he hides it even from himself at times, yet the more he suppresses it, the more powerful it becomes. He begins to feel the dissonance between his inner state and his outer mask. This tension gnaws at him, creating restlessness, irritation, even anger. He may lash out or retreat further into himself, not realizing that what torments him is not her absence alone, but his refusal to face the truth of how deeply it affects him. There is a strange irony here. The very pride that seeks to protect him becomes the prison that binds him. For in trying to appear strong, he denies himself the release that comes from admitting vulnerability. He convinces himself that reaching out or confessing longing would diminish his value, when in reality, it is the act of pretending that weakens him. The struggle with ego, then, is not only about missing her, but about resisting the lesson that absence is trying to teach. That strength is not the denial of feeling, but the courage to embrace it. As time passes, this struggle intensifies. He may notice how easily his thoughts drift back to her, how much effort it takes to suppress the instinct to reach out, how quickly frustration rises when he cannot escape the pull of memory and desire. Each attempt to bury his longing only amplifies it. The ego, in its stubbornness, does not realize that absence is patient. It waits, it lingers, it seeps through the cracks of denial until he is forced to confront what he has been resisting. And when he does, he is faced with the humbling recognition that his pride has not protected him. It has only prolonged his suffering. In this confrontation, he begins to see himself more clearly. He realizes that vulnerability does not strip him of his power, but connects him to his own humanity. He discovers that longing is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the depth of his capacity for attachment and care. And though it unsettles him, though it shakes the identity he tried so hard to preserve, it also begins to free him. For once he surrenders to the truth of his feelings, he no longer has to live in conflict with himself. Absence, then, becomes not just a test of endurance, but a mirror held up to the ego. It shows him the cost of pride, the futility of denial, and the quiet strength that lies in honesty. Through this struggle, he is invited to step beyond the illusion of control and into the deeper reality of connection. And it is only when he allows himself to see that truth that he realizes absence has not weakened him at all. It has revealed him.